Hey all, here OS Reviews. Recently I visited Europe. And so international traveling, especially across a few different countries, can be a little bit stressful. So in order to make it as easy as possible, I wanted to check out a few different gadgets related to travel. The first item that we'll take a look at is a global international travel SIM card from a company called Eiotclub. It's a brand that I wasn't familiar with before, but it seems like they also partner with different security camera brands like Reolink to provide you with cellular capabilities onto your security cameras mounted outdoors. But more specifically, they also have various different SIM card data plans available. The most affordable pay-as-you-go, again, no contract data only plans seem to be available for the US, but the one that we have here is going to be the global SIM card, one of their newest products covering over 200 countries. Of course, you can always pick up a local data plan or a SIM card once you land into a country, but that just adds a bit of friction and requires you to spend more time when you could have been traveling and sightseeing when you're on the trip. And similarly, a lot of the plans that you pick up once you get to a country, let's say Sweden with Leica Mobile, is only going to work within that specific country. So if you're going on to more of an international tour or some type of survey trip, hopping across different countries, backpacking, then that's where I think a plan like this is going to be actually quite attractive. You only pay upfront for data that you want to use. The moment that you land and turn on your cellular network, you'll be able to connect to the internet, not to mention that it's going to be a lot cheaper compared to roaming costs if you already have a SIM card that you're using in the day-to-day here in the United States or Canada, for example. But if you're using that same plan and going overseas, oftentimes they will give you kind of a higher charge, let's say 2 or 3 times more per minute. So that can really add up, especially if you're using data, which is why, again, one of these global traveling SIMs can be quite neat. So this is still a traditional SIM card, not a eSIM. That is one of the other types of products we've seen previously on our channel. But if you are still looking for one that you can pop into your device and kind of swap back and forth maybe between 2 or 3 devices, that might be beneficial. And specifically for Eiotclub, though, they do also have a companion app available that we'll take a look at in a moment for iOS and Android that allows you to more easily top up, see how much data you've consumed, and just take a look at some additional stats. So this particular company is also available on Amazon, including ones that are covering data for entire year. That's going to be a little higher there, as well as ones which have, let's say, only 2 gigabytes of data for $20 versus kind of a sample of only, let's say, 1 gigabyte for only $5 or $10. Aside from the SIM card itself, which also comes with some adapters if you want to use it in the micro versus full-size SIM card versus the micro or nano size. And there's also going to be a SIM pin as well for popping it into a tray of a compatible smartphone. Since right now we are back home here in the US, it is using AT&T in our current region and having pretty strong reception strength. And now the sun is almost setting in the beautiful city of Sofia, Bulgaria. And in this particular instance, a carrier called A1BG. And it seems like our reception has been fairly consistent. I was getting around 3 to 4 bars. Let's go hit on search, and web pages at the very least seem to be respectable, as well as doing some quick video consumption. It also seems to do all right. As you can tell, it is averaging a fairly consistent and fast megabits per second, so really shouldn't have too many issues when 5G networks are available. Of course, that will depend on the region that you're located in. Certain cities may have better infrastructure than others, for instance, but at least here, again, in the metropolis of Sofia, we are actually getting a pretty impressive rate. And it says it's very fast, able to handle HD videos and the like. Just make sure that mobile data, roaming, and international data, as well as 5G, if applicable, are turned on for your device. And now here we are in Budapest, Hungary, still in Europe. And once again, the data is pretty much working as expected. This time around, the SIM has switched over to Vodafone Hungary. And once again, the reception quality seems to be doing a fairly good job of remaining connected. And clicking on test 3, 2, 1. And there we go. We can tell that the speeds this time around here in Hungary, Budapest, does seem to be a touch slower compared to Sofia, Bulgaria, that we tried out earlier, but it still seems to be good enough for things like web browsing. Again, watching YouTube videos, it still feels pretty smooth. And interestingly, upload speeds are faster for some reason here compared to the download speeds. So, sharing some of the notes here, I started my trip off in London, and in that particular instance, I was able to get very strong reception, especially outdoors. It was actually using O2. And then moving over into Finland, it was able to switch intelligently into a network called Telia. And then switching into France, in the Paris region, it automatically remained connected as well into another local carrier, still with very strong reception quality. Really, the only exception in my trip was in Geneva, Switzerland. It seemed like it had very strong reception strength, but for some reason, even with mobile data turned on, I was actually not able to load pages. So it seems like this was one instance where it wasn't quite able to lock or perhaps allow me to access the internet. But thankfully, Geneva in particular has plenty of buildings, commercial districts, so I was never really away from Wi-Fi too far, so I was still able to remain connected pretty easily. But it was one anomaly during the trip that I did want to flag. Moving into Barcelona as well as Spain, it was automatically able to lock into Vodafone ES or for Spain. And what is also interesting is that in Spain as well, it automatically swapped over to Orange in addition to Vodafone, just depending on what region I was in to get the strongest reception. No issues there in terms of using it comfortably. For less populated cities and countries, it takes a little bit longer for the phone to lock into a network once you first take it out of a airplane mode or you turn it on for the first time. Roughly around 30 seconds to up to a minute, in fact, for it to lock, and afterwards it stays connected. Otherwise, moving into actual Italy, it was connected to Vodafone IT Italy there, and no issues there as well. Then moving into Denmark, this one here was a regional carrier called Telia DK. Again, remaining connected. Reception strength was, for some reason, a little bit weaker here, but still no real problems when it comes to staying connected to the internet. Here is the companion app. Tapping on the inside, you'll be able to take a look at how much data you have currently used, as well as the expiration date. And it tells us we've used about 2.5 gigabytes out of the 5 gig package here. And unused, you can also find if you have additional ones purchased, it won't really activate until your current one expires or you've used enough of the data to then go into a second bracket there, as well as any ones which have already been expired or you've finished in the past. If you purchase multiple SIM cards or plans, you can also tap on plus to add those into your account and then track all of that information in this one consolidated view. The only thing to keep in mind though is just like on some of the eSIM type products we've covered recently, this is going to be data only. So it doesn't technically support voice calling, at least in the regular phone app. However, as we've touched on, there are plenty of kind of voice over internet type services that are free, including even Google Voice, that allows you to still make calls just using internet connection, and that seems to work generally well enough. Plus, again, social media these days, whether it's going to be Twitter, Facebook, can also be good ways to communicate. One other benefit of having a data type package like this is in certain countries, it can also be an alternative to having VPN, especially in regions like, say, China and the mainland, where there might be some degree of restrictions on websites that you can access if you're using Wi-Fi, because those routers have to go through the Great Firewall of China and they're more closely regulated, which is why sites like Google as well as YouTube are actually not going to be ones that you can access directly unless you purchase a VPN. However, because this is using cellular data that is technically not as easy to regulate or monitor as, again, LAN, you are able to actually use this in lieu of a VPN if you are in countries like, say, China, mainland, and you can still use it to access services like Gmail, Google, YouTube, and the like. So you don't have to kind of double dip and purchase a VPN on top of it. If you purchase this already, you have the data, you also are able to access all of your standard Google apps and services. So fairly good there, can be a great option again if you are traveling on the go,